The message came at 10:12 a.m. on a Wednesday, short, cold, delivered like an errand reminder. Eli, we need you to move out by Sunday. Chloe and Ryan are getting married, and they'll be taking the apartment. It's time you found a new place. Mom, I read it twice, once to make sure I wasn't hallucinating, and a second time to confirm the tone. It was casual, almost cheerful. I was sitting in my office, the 23rd floor of a glass building in downtown Seattle, running numbers on a $9 million mixed-use acquisition. My third coffee of the morning was still steaming when the family group chat lit up. Chloe, my younger sister, had already posted a Pinterest board titled Industrial Chic Loft Vibes. Dozens of pictures. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, floor-to-ceiling windows. My apartment, the one I'd lived in for nearly 5 years. Can we start painting this weekend before Eli's stuff is gone? She texted under the board. Bedroom first, Ryan added. We want it to feel like ours by the wedding. And then my brother Nate chimed in. Finally. Mom's been letting Eli freeload there forever. He doesn't even need all that space. Freeload? I almost laughed. I minimized the group chat and opened a browser tab. Merit Holdings LLC, my company, appeared in bold at the top of the property management portal. The same company I'd quietly launched 7 years ago when I bought my first duplex with the bonus from my first corporate acquisition deal. I navigated to 1215 North Hudson Avenue, a 14-unit building, part commercial, part residential. Purchase price, $3.1 million. Current valuation, $5.7 million. Owner, Merit Holdings, LLC. Managing member, Elijah Merritt, also known as me, including the corner unit on the 5th floor where I currently lived, the apartment my family apparently thought belonged to some family trust they had rights to. I pulled up the digital access system. 4 key fobs registered, mine, Mom's emergency spare, Chloe's just-in-case copy, and one Dad made himself last summer when I was in Miami. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Dad. Eli, we talked this over. Chloe and Ryan need an affordable start. You're stable in your career. You can find something new without trouble. Stable. That's one way to describe it. At 34, I was one of the youngest managing directors in West Coast commercial real estate, overseeing a private portfolio worth $18 million. But sure, stable. Then came Mom again. This is a good thing. It's time to stop coasting and push yourself. Maybe get a roommate. Learn to budget better. I hadn't asked my parents for a single dollar since I was 19. I'd paid my way through Wharton while working 2 jobs and investing my internship paychecks. Chloe, on the other hand, was 30 and still on the family phone plan. I opened the tenant portal for Unit 5C, my apartment. Tenant, Elijah Merritt. Landlord, Merit Holdings LLC. Lease, month to month with owner occupancy rights. Then I checked the deed. Purchased outright 4.5 years ago from a retiring developer. No partners, no investors, no family involvement. They'd never asked about it. Never even pretended to care about my work. So I never told them. The phone rang. Mom again. Did you see my message? She asked, skipping any greeting. I did. Good. Then you understand. Chloe needs that apartment. You've had it long enough. Time to share family resources. Family resources? I repeated. Don't start with that tone. You know what I mean. The apartment was open, you moved in. But now Chloe has priority. She's getting married. Starting a life? You're just what? Just there. Living my life. Expanding my portfolio. Managing assets my family couldn't even conceptualize. Mom, I said calmly. Do you know who owns this building? I assume some investment group your father knows. Why does it matter? It matters because I'd like to know who exactly is authorizing this eviction. It's not an eviction. It's family managing family property. Don't be dramatic. So Dad has an ownership stake? I don't know the details. He handles the investments. The point is, the apartment is going to Chloe. I see. And you've spoken to the actual owner to confirm that? Eli, stop being difficult. This isn't a debate. When the call ended, I sent a message to Mateo, my property manager. Deactivate all unauthorized key fobs for 5C effective immediately. Family attempting to evict tenant under false pretenses. Update security. Mateo replied within minutes. Done. Shall I issue formal lease violation notices? Not yet, I typed. Let's see how this plays out. By that evening, the group chat was on fire. Chloe. Eli, don't make this complicated. Just pack. Mom. You're being stubborn. Nate. Classic Eli, always dramatic. Dad. We're calling building management tomorrow to make this official. I screenshotted the property deed. Owner, Merritt Holdings LLC. Sole member, Elijah Merritt. Then I screenshotted my lease. I saved both. Didn't send them. Not yet. Thursday. Voicemails. Missed calls. Dad's voice was tense. I called management. They say I'm not authorized. They won't even confirm tenant info. What kind of operation is this? Call me back. I didn't. I was busy, negotiating a $12 million acquisition deal in Portland. By that afternoon, Chloe had tried her key fob. It didn't work. Chloe, why isn't my key working? Mom, something's wrong with security. Chloe can't get in. Me, I haven't touched anything. Maybe building management updated protocols. Dad, this is unacceptable. I'm coming down there myself. I pictured him storming into the lobby, demanding answers, only to be politely directed to the ownership office of Merritt Holdings LLC, which consisted of me, my attorney, and my CPA. Friday morning, the inevitable happened. Explain, Dad said, his voice controlled but shaking. I went to management. They told me the owner is you. What is going on? It's pretty simple, I said. I own the building. Bought it almost 5 years ago. Impossible. You don't have that kind of money. I do, actually. I've been investing in real estate since I was 25. 7 properties. Combined value? About $18 million. The Hudson building was my third acquisition. Silence. Long enough for me to wonder if the line had gone dead. Why didn't you tell us? He finally asked. You never asked. You never asked, I repeated. I could hear Dad's breath hitch over the line, like he was trying to process a language he'd never heard before. We're your family, Eli. We shouldn't have to ask. And yet you assumed, I said, keeping my tone measured. You assumed I was barely scraping by, assumed I needed your guidance, assumed you could make decisions for me, and you acted on those assumptions. Dad was quiet for a long moment. Then, with a thin thread of desperation in his voice, he tried a different tactic. But Chloe needs the apartment. You could still give it to her. No, I said simply. There was stunned silence. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, Dad. Chloe can find her own apartment. There are plenty of listings in this neighborhood, but she doesn't get mine just because Mom thinks it's convenient. You're going to devastate your sister. She'll survive. People apartment hunt every day. Your mother's going to be furious. She already is, I said flatly. This will just give her a new reason. I ended the call before he could respond. My pulse was steady, calmer than I expected. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my family dynamic. Not because I had more money, but because I'd finally drawn a boundary they couldn't bulldoze. Friday evening, my phone rang again. Mom this time. Your father told me the most ridiculous story, she said before I could even say hello. He says you own the building? It's not a story, I replied. I own the building. And I'm not moving out. Chloe will need to find somewhere else. But we promised her that apartment. You promised her something that wasn't yours to promise. How can you be so selfish? She snapped. She's your sister. And I'm a person with property rights. Being related doesn't entitle her to my apartment. This isn't some stranger's apartment, Elijah. This is family. No, Mom. This is my apartment in my building. Family doesn't factor into it, I heard her scoff. I can't believe you've been lying to us all these years. I haven't lied about anything. You told people I was house-sitting, and I didn't correct you because it wasn't your business. I pay my bills. I live my life. I manage my investments. None of that required your approval. You've been hoarding money while Chloe struggles. Chloe doesn't struggle, I said, my voice sharper now. She has a solid job and parents who cover half her expenses. She chooses to live beyond her means, and that's her choice. I chose differently. Different choices. Different outcomes. She hung up on me. The family group chat exploded over the weekend. Chloe. I can't believe you lied to us. You're loaded and you let us think we were helping you. Nate, this is so messed up. You've been playing poor while sitting on a fortune. Dad, we need a family meeting to sort this out. Mom, you owe your sister an apology. I muted the chat and got back to work. My weekend didn't stop because their illusions shattered. Saturday was property inspections and contractor meetings. Sunday was lease renewals and cap rate analyses. My life, the one they'd never bothered to ask about, kept moving forward. Sunday night, just as I was finishing a call with a potential investor, there was a knock on my apartment door. I checked the building camera feed. All of them. Mom, Dad, Chloe, Ryan, Nate, standing in the hallway like they were staging an intervention. I opened the door, but I didn't invite them in. We need to talk, Dad said. About what? I asked. About how we're going to resolve this. Mom said firmly. Chloe needs a place to live. Then Chloe needs to go apartment hunting, I replied. There are 3 vacant units in this building alone. She's welcome to apply for one like any other tenant. Chloe blinked. You're kidding. No. She'll need to submit an application, provide proof of income, pass a credit check, and pay first month's rent and security deposit. You can't be serious, she said, her voice trembling. I am, I said. And I'm telling you about the vacancies out of courtesy. But you're not getting this apartment. What about a family discount? Ryan asked, trying for diplomacy. Market rate, I said without hesitation. I don't do family discounts. That's how conflicts start. Conflicts? Mom's voice was sharp now. We're already in a conflict because you hid all of this from us. I didn't hide anything. I was private about my finances, which is my right. You made assumptions. I didn't correct them. That's not lying. You let us think you were struggling, Chloe said, eyes bright with tears. I never said I was struggling. You assumed that because I don't broadcast my bank statements. Nate crossed his arms. So what? You're just going to keep all that money to yourself? It's my money, Nate, I said calmly. I earned it. I invested it. I built it. What exactly do you think you're entitled to? We're family, and being family doesn't entitle you to my property. I don't owe you housing, money, or access to my assets. Dad tried one last angle. Eli, we're proud of you, truly. We just think you could be a little more generous with family. I am generous with family, I said. I host holidays. I remember birthdays. I show up when it matters. What I don't do is hand over my property because someone decides they want it. So that's it? Chloe's voice cracked. You're just going to keep your precious apartment while we struggle? You don't struggle, I said, looking her dead in the eye. Mom and Dad pay your phone bill. They cover your car insurance. They helped with your down payment. You have money. You just spend it elsewhere. That's your choice. It's not my job to fix the consequences. This is so typical, Nate muttered. Eli always thinks he's better than everyone. I don't think I'm better, I replied quietly. I just refuse to be treated like a resource. They left shortly after. No hugs, no goodbyes, just angry silence and tight expressions. I closed the door, leaned against it, and let the quiet settle. For the first time in a long time, the boundaries were mine, and they held. The fallout was immediate. The group chat stayed muted. Family dinner invites came laced with guilt. Mom told relatives I was going through something. Dad started sending me articles about family wealth management. I didn't respond to any of it. Monday morning, I walked into the office, closed on a $4.1 million office building, and added property number 8 to my portfolio. Tuesday, Mateo texted me. 2 applications for the vacant units. One is from a Chloe Carter. Should I process normally? Process normally, I replied. No special treatment. 2 days later, I was halfway through reviewing due diligence documents for a new retail plaza acquisition when my phone buzzed again. Mateo. Chloe's application was denied. Debt-to-income ratio too high. 2 late payments on her credit report. I stared at the message for a second before exhaling slowly. I wasn't surprised, but part of me had still expected them to skate through on charm and confidence, like they always did. A few hours later, my phone lit up again. This time, it was a direct text from Chloe. Chloe, you rejected my application? Me. The property management company rejected it. Based on standard tenant criteria. Chloe. You could override it. Me. I could. But I won't. The criteria exist for a reason. There was a long pause, then a final message. Chloe. I hate you. Me. You're allowed to feel that way. I put my phone face down on the desk and leaned back in my chair. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. Mostly I felt relieved. For once, I wasn't being manipulated into fixing a situation someone else had created. I was holding a boundary and refusing to apologize for it. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of silence from Chloe. 3 weeks of passive-aggressive Facebook posts from Mom about selfish people forgetting the meaning of family. 3 weeks of Dad forwarding me emails about how wealth is meant to be shared. And then, on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, I got the message I'd been expecting. Chloe, we found a place. Across town, smaller than yours, more expensive, but it's ours. I stared at the screen, reading it twice. The tone was cold but resigned, like someone who'd run out of ways to fight and finally accepted the reality in front of them. Me. I'm glad you found a place. I hope it works out for you both. No reply. Mom stopped calling altogether. The only messages I got from her were clipped. Logistical texts about holiday plans or birthday dinners. Dad tried, occasionally, little attempts to normalize conversation, like nothing had happened. But even those carried a sharp edge of disapproval. And yet, despite the chilly silence, I felt more peaceful than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't living my life based on what they expected. I wasn't shrinking myself to fit their narrative of responsible middle child who never causes trouble. I was me, unapologetically and entirely. It was a Thursday, night in late September when I saw them again. Had just come back from a dinner meeting with a potential investor and was crossing the lobby when the elevator doors opened. And there they were, Mom, Dad, and Chloe, standing in the hallway outside my apartment. I froze mid-step. We hadn't spoken face-to-face since the confrontation weeks ago. Eli, Mom said, her voice overly polite. We were in the neighborhood and thought we'd stop by. Were you? I asked flatly. Chloe wouldn't look at me. Dad cleared his throat. We thought maybe we could have a civil conversation. About what? About everything, Mom said quickly. This whole situation, it's complicated. No, I said, crossing my arms. It's actually very simple. You assumed you could evict me from a place I own. You got angry when you couldn't. And now you're upset that I didn't hand it over anyway. Don't make it sound so cold, she snapped. We just wanted to help Chloe. By taking something that wasn't yours. By making use of family resources. Mom, I said, my patience thinning. Let me make this crystal clear. My apartment is not a family resource. My building is not a family resource. My company is not a family resource. They are mine, and they remain mine, regardless of how many guilt trips you throw at me. Her lips thinned. You've changed. No, I said quietly. I've just stopped apologizing for who I am. Dad stepped forward then, trying to bridge the gap. Look, we might have handled things poorly. Maybe we overstepped, but at the end of the day, we're still family. Surely there's a way to move past this. I don't hold grudges, I said. But moving past this means you stop treating me like a safety net. It means you stop assuming my success belongs to you. You're twisting this, Mom hissed. We just wanted Chloe to have a good start. And I want a lot of things, I said. But I don't expect other people to give them to me. For a moment, nobody spoke. The tension in the hallway was thick enough to choke on. Finally, Chloe looked up at me for the first time. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. Regret what? Not telling us, not sharing, not including us in what you built. I studied her for a long moment. No, I said finally, because if I had told you, you would have expected more. You would have demanded more, and eventually you would have resented me for not giving it. Tears welled in her eyes, and for a split second, the little sister I used to help with homework and drive to dance practice peeked through, but then she blinked, and the distance was back. This isn't over, Mom said, her voice trembling with anger. You can't just cut family out. I'm not cutting anyone out, I said. I'm setting boundaries. What you choose to do with them is up to you." They left without another word. Life moved on. I bought my 9th property, a historic 3-story retail building in Tacoma. My company hit its highest revenue quarter to date. My tenants were happy. My investors were happy. And for the first time in my adult life, I was happy too. The family dinners resumed eventually, but they were different. Stiffer. Polite on the surface, but brittle underneath. There were no more casual comments about how I should use my money. No more passive-aggressive jokes about how much space I had. They didn't ask about my properties, and I didn't offer updates. We were, in a sense, cordial strangers. And honestly, that was fine with me. Because beneath all the awkward small talk and strained smiles, one thing was crystal clear. They would never again underestimate me. They would never again assume they had control. And they would definitely never tell me to pack my things. A few weeks later, I was walking through the lobby when Mateo caught up to me. "Hey, just FYI," he said. "Chloe stopped by the leasing office this morning. Asked about future vacancies." I smiled slightly. "And?" I told her the same thing I tell everyone else. Applications are open to the public. First come, first served. "Good," I said. "Keep it that way." And as I stepped into the elevator, watching the lobby shrink below me, I realized something that made me laugh quietly to myself. They had told me to pack my things. But the truth was, they were the ones who'd been evicted. Not from my apartment, but from the illusion that they had any power over me. Autumn arrived in Seattle quietly. Soft rain, burnt orange leaves, and the kind of gray skies that make everything feel more cinematic. By October, it had been almost 2 months since the pack your things text. 2 months since my family had tried to evict me from my own apartment. 2 months since I'd redrawn the boundaries of my life. I wish I could say things were completely calm now, but calm wasn't quite the right word. It was different. Polite silence, thin smiles at Sunday dinners, carefully chosen words and tense pauses. We were all pretending that everything was fine, and everyone knew it wasn't. The first sign that the story wasn't over came on a rainy Thursday morning. I was in the middle of a development pitch when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk." "Chloe," I ignored it. 30 minutes later, "Please, just hear me out." And then, "It's important." Against my better judgment, I replied, "Fine. Saturday, 10 a.m., coffee at Broadstone Cafe, Saturday." She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only thing holding her together. Chloe looked different, tired, smaller somehow. The confident, self-assured younger sister who always knew how to get her way wasn't sitting across from me. This version looked like someone who had just run into the real world at full speed. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. "You said it was important." "It is." I waited. She didn't speak for a moment. Just stared down at her coffee like it held the script she was trying to memorize. "Ryan and I broke up." I blinked. "Oh," she laughed, bitter and humorless. "Yeah. Oh. That's about the reaction I expected." "What happened?" She shrugged. "He wanted a certain lifestyle. I couldn't keep up. We fought, a lot, and eventually, he decided he didn't want to do this anymore." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "Are you?" she asked, looking up sharply. "Or are you secretly thinking I brought this on myself?" "Chloe, I don't... Because maybe I did," she interrupted. "Maybe I should have been smarter. Saved more, been more responsible. Maybe I shouldn't have assumed I'd always have help." I stayed silent. There was nothing I could say that wouldn't sound like I told you so. And I had no desire to make this harder than it already was. She sighed. "I'm moving out of the apartment next week. I can't afford it alone. Do you have somewhere to go?" "Not yet," she hesitated. "That's actually why I wanted to talk. I already knew where this was going." "Chloe, before you say no," she said quickly, "just listen. I'm not asking for your apartment. I know that ship has sailed. I'm just asking for a chance. A studio, a small one. Something I can afford. I'll pay market rate. I'll go through the application process. Everything." I studied her face. There was no entitlement in her tone this time. No manipulation, just a quiet, honest request. and it was the first time I'd ever seen her this vulnerable. "I'll consider it," I said after a long pause. "But you still have to apply like everyone else." "Of course," she said, nodding quickly. I wouldn't expect anything else. A week later, Mateo forwarded me an application from a Chloe Carter. Income verified, debt-to-income ratio improved, credit report clean. She'd gotten her finances together in record time. Me. "Approve it." Mateo. "Studio on 3rd floor?" Me. "Yes, a standard lease. Market rate. Nothing special." 3 days later, Chloe texted me. "Thank you." "For what?" I replied. "For treating me like everyone else." I thought that would be the end of it. A quiet conclusion to a noisy chapter. But life has a way of surprising you just when you think the dust has settled. It was mid-November when Dad asked to meet. Just the two of us. No Mom, no Chloe, no Nate. He chose a small steakhouse downtown, the same place he used to take me when I was in college. "Your mother doesn't know I asked you to meet," he admitted as soon as I sat down. "That's not surprising," I said. He sighed. "I owe you an apology. That was new. I should have known better," he continued. "I shouldn't have assumed your success belonged to anyone but you. And I definitely shouldn't have tried to take something that wasn't mine to take." I didn't say anything. I just let him speak. I grew up believing family meant sharing everything. Money, homes, opportunities. I thought I was doing the right thing by helping Chloe. But I see now I was just enabling her. And I disrespected you in the process. I felt something shift in my chest. A small, cautious piece of resentment loosened its grip. "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded. "You're not obligated to forgive me." "I know," I replied. "But I do." We sat in silence for a while, sipping bourbon and watching rain streak the windows. It wasn't the warm, easy comfort of a father-son bond, not yet, but it was a start. A fragile bridge across a wide gap. Thanksgiving came and went. For the first time in years, it was at my place, my building's rooftop lounge overlooking the city skyline. I cooked. Chloe brought dessert. Nate complained about the traffic. And though Mom barely spoke to me, she didn't make a scene. Small victories. When everyone left, Chloe lingered behind. "I wanted to say thank you again," she said, looking around the lounge. "Not just for the apartment, for everything, for holding me accountable, for not rescuing me." "You're doing the work," I said. "I just stopped standing in the way." She smiled. "I guess I needed to hit the wall before I could build something on my own." We stood in silence for a while, watching the lights of the city flicker below us. And for the first time in a long time, there was no bitterness between us, no resentment. Just two adults, figuring out who they were without the weight of family expectations. By December, things had changed in ways I couldn't have imagined back in the spring. Chloe was thriving in her new studio, small but hers. She'd taken on a promotion at work, started budgeting, even talked about investing. Nate had stopped making snide comments about my money, and Dad had become one of my biggest supporters, even helping me scout properties for Merit Holdings. Mom was still distant. Maybe she always would be, but I'd stopped chasing her approval, and that alone felt like freedom. And me? I'd just closed on property number 10, a historic warehouse I planned to convert into creative loft spaces. Another milestone, another step forward, another reminder that the life I built was mine, and no one else's. They had once told me to pack my things. Now, they were the ones rebuilding, not just their living situations, but their entire understanding of who I was. And this time, they knew better than to underestimate me. By the time spring rolled around, life looked nothing like it had a year ago. The storm had passed, and in its place was something better. Something stronger. The rooftop lounge was quiet that evening, the Seattle skyline awash in orange and pink as the sun dipped behind the Space Needle. I stood with a glass of bourbon in hand, leaning against the railing, watching the city hum beneath me. This building, the one they once told me to pack my things and leave, was still mine. Only now it meant something more than just property. It was a symbol of the boundaries I'd built, the lessons I'd learned, and the respect I'd earned. And tonight, this building was about to host something I never thought would happen. A family dinner, by my invitation. I'd thought long and hard about whether to do it. Part of me wanted to leave things as they were, distant but peaceful. But another part, the part that still believed in second chances, knew this was the final piece of closure I needed. At 6:00 p.m. sharp, the elevator dinged. The doors opened. One by one, they stepped inside. Dad came first, carrying a bottle of wine and an awkward smile. Chloe followed, holding a tray of homemade lasagna. She looked genuinely happy, freer than I'd ever seen her. Nate walked in next, quieter than usual, offering a nod instead of his usual sarcastic remark. And then, after a long pause, Mom appeared. She hesitated at the door, clutching her purse like a shield, her eyes scanning the room. "Thanks for coming," I said. She nodded stiffly. "Thank you for inviting us." We sat around the table, the same people who, a year ago, had been ready to throw me out of this building. Only now the dynamic was different. They were guests in my home, and for the first time, they seemed to understand what that meant. Dinner started awkwardly. Small talk, safe topics, work, weather, football. But as the night wore on, something softened. The conversations grew more honest, the laughter more real. Chloe told stories about her new apartment, how she'd painted the walls herself, how she'd started a side hustle selling handmade jewelry, how she was saving for her first investment property. "Can you believe that?" she said with a grin. "Me, thinking about investing." "You'd be surprised how quickly it becomes addictive," I said, smiling back. Dad shared updates on his retirement plans and asked for advice on a small commercial property he was considering. It felt strange. Him asking me for guidance, but also deeply validating. And then there was Mom. She'd been quiet most of the evening, pushing food around her plate, listening more than speaking. But as dessert plates were cleared, she finally looked up. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. The room went silent. "I was angry," she continued. "Angry at myself, mostly, because I realized that I didn't really know you. Not the real you. Not the man you'd become. And that hurt. It was easier to be upset than to admit I'd failed to see how hard you've worked." "Mom, no, let me finish." Her voice trembled slightly. "I was wrong. About the apartment. About what I thought you owed us. About so many things. I see now that we took you for granted. That we assumed we were entitled to things we never earned. And I'm sorry." I took a deep breath. For months I had imagined this moment. What I'd say, how I'd react. But now that it was happening, words felt unnecessary. "Thank you," I said simply. Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm proud of you. More than I can ever put into words." Something loosened in my chest then. A knot I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Forgiveness wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was quiet, gentle, like a weight quietly slipping off your shoulders. As the night went on, something extraordinary happened. We laughed. Real, genuine laughter. The kind that had been missing from our family for a long time. Chloe teased me about my boring decor. Dad told embarrassing stories from my childhood. Even Mom cracked a joke or two, the kind that used to make the whole table erupt. And in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't about winning. It wasn't about proving them wrong or rubbing my success in their faces. It was about reclaiming the narrative of my life, on my terms. They had tried to define me as the quiet middle child, the one who would always compromise, always give in, always put family first no matter the cost. And for years I had played that role, until the day they told me to pack my things. That day, everything changed. I stopped playing the part they'd written for me. I started writing my own story, and in doing so, I didn't just protect my apartment. I built a life they could finally see, respect, and even be inspired by. After dinner, everyone helped clean up. Chloe stayed behind to chat while the others left. "I have to say," she said, leaning against the counter, "I never thought we'd end up here." "Neither did I. You know," she continued, "when I first found out how much you were worth, I was furious. I thought you'd betrayed us, but now I get it. You weren't hiding anything. You were just building something. And I want to build something too. I smiled. Then do it. And don't do it for me, or for Mom and Dad. Do it for you. She nodded. I will. Later that night, when the apartment was quiet again, I poured myself another drink and stepped out onto the balcony. The rain had started again, soft, steady, cleansing. The city glowed beneath me, full of stories and possibilities. I thought about how far I'd come, from the kid who was told to make himself small, to the man who owned the building they'd tried to push him out of, from the quiet one in the family, to the one who taught them the meaning of boundaries, independence, and respect. They had told me to pack my things, but instead, I unpacked a new version of myself. And now, as the rain washed the city clean, I realized something even more powerful. Owning the building was never the real victory. Owning myself, my voice, my worth, my future was